to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Marlene Robinson. She's a dear friend of mine. And after owning her own company and brand for 9 years and producing large-scale events for the last 5, in addition to her 20 years in corporate America, her perspective in business is broad. She has the gift of consulting and coaching some amazing entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, and trainers on the stage to share their message. She has become embedded into a variety of different organizations to help craft, optimize, and launch marketing campaigns and executive-level projects. Her experience has offered insight into how to identify opportunity and improvement in workflows and in staffing and in process development. With 20 years of experience in the consumer packaged goods industry, she's passionate about the corporate experience and employee engagement and she can lend to her clients. The corporate experience paired with her entrepreneurial endeavors affords her a unique perspective into the needs and concerns of business leaders and their teams. She has specialized in events that transform the audiences intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, aka personal and professional development. Managing every detail from the hotel negotiations to the menu selections to the main stage production, speaker coaching, content creation, and audience engagement, from registration desks to swag shops to volunteer crew management, special performances, and vendor forums, she's mastered the art of executing a life-changing event. Add to that golf tournaments, corporate events, galas, summits, seminars, symposiums. She's got this event thing down to an art form, which is ultimately project management at its finest. She has completed her certifications in John Maxwell speaker training and coaching, the 17 Laws of Invaluable Growth, Connecting with Audiences, Leadership Gold and Developing the Leader Within 2.0, and her TTISI certifications in DISC, Driving Forces, and Emotional Intelligence. And I am happy to introduce Marlene. She loves to help optimize organizations and their people. Thank you for being here today, Marlene.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a great introduction. Tall order to live up to. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too, as always. I enjoy the times we get to speak together, and we're both so passionate about personal and professional development in ourselves and in those we serve, and really just diving into revealing hidden potential in others and in ourselves. So I know this is going to be a very meaningful conversation. I want to dive to the deep end with you because I know you can go there. You can go there really quickly. And there's not a lot of people that are willing to be courageous like that and dive right into the deep end. But today we're going to talk about a perspective on leadership. And this is really, we're really going to talk about the dark side of leadership. And I'll let Marlene explain kind of what's on her heart and what she's been thinking about and what we've been discussing about having a conversation about. But once you know you've done a lot of work in the personal development space and you've kind of overcome your own bullshit, it really becomes apparent when other people haven't.
Yeah, it's like you can't unsee it.
Right. And so you're going to share today from your own experiences and perspectives from working with countless executives, working in corporate, being a business owner, being a, coach, developer, facilitator, all the roles that you've played. You've gained a multitude of experience and wisdom, and I want to distill some of that. And we talk a lot about what it takes to be a good leader, but also we can learn from our anti-heroes as well. And so we can learn from anyone. And so let's dive into, first, let's talk about just a quick, how did you get to where you are today? And then let's look at some of the examples about the dark side of leadership that you've seen in yourself and in others.
All right. How did I get where I am today? It's always one of those zigzaggy roads. You have one idea in mind, and then, fate takes its turn and helps you make different decisions. 4 years ago, I started getting very intentional about the work I do and found my passion and what I believe is my purpose and started making business decisions that aligned with that dream and that vision. I was intentional about the people that I worked with. I was intentional about the work that I did. And I knew that my own intrinsic motivation is very important to me, and feeling passionate and fulfilled and inspired by the work that I do makes me more powerful and makes me very fulfilled in the work, in my work life. So I try to be very intentional about who I work with and the work that I do. And honestly, through almost word of mouth and great fortune and good reputation, I have been able to work with incredible leaders, including Rob and yourself, and go into organizations and share what it is I know about behavioral profiling, about leadership development, about organizational structure and process and procedure and protocol, taking my 20 years of experience in corporate America and my 6 years of experience of being an entrepreneur and producing large scale events and distilling that down to help specific companies and company leaders be better at the work that they do, and coaching them through various obstacles with organizational development, and getting the right people in the right seats. So that's a little bit about how I got to where I am. And right now I am in a fortunate role of leading a $10 million company with 125 employees, and have enjoyed so much of the work that I've been able to do. And implementing leadership development training here in this organization has really taught me a lot and revealed a lot to me. And I wanted to share a little bit about that with you today, and layer in some of the other experiences from past clients and past employers that really gives us a peek under the tent of that sort of dark side of leadership development and personal development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it. I get to see it on the back end as well. And oftentimes I see leaders blaming their team for a lot of things and never taking real accountability for themselves. And it's their employees, and they're entitled, and they don't care, and they don't know stuff. And it's super easy to point the finger, but it's really takes a very vulnerable and courageous leader to look in the mirror and say, maybe it's me. There is a common denominator here. And I seem to be in all the situations, right? And maybe it's not all their fault, but they play a role. It's like a marriage, right? It's not always the significant other's fault. It takes two to tango. It takes, it has that whole relational piece. So share some of the things that you have found and you have seen that show themselves in those ways where the leader's not willing to take accountability.
So, so my most recent experience was, it was really cool. For 11 weeks straight, I took 24 people through leadership development training based on a John Maxwell Leadership 2.0 workbook sort of curriculum. And I very much customized it for this team and integrated things from Simon Sinek and Brene Brown, and made it relevant for the work that this team was doing. Now, this was a project that I was hired to do and asked to do with the entire organization. And so the entire organization was invited. And everyone except for 3 key people on leadership attended. And what happened was, this team, this crew, this amazing group of hardworking, dedicated, loyal employees became wiser, and they raised their standard on how they treat one another and how they're willing to be treated. It occurred to me, these people don't know that they deserve better. These individuals believe that this is okay to be spoken to this way, to be treated this way. And I wanted them to raise their standards so that they not only know that they should be treated better, but then they should be treating others better. And that happened. And it was really fun to watch until the time came where the three individuals in leadership who had never attended a single workshop started um, micromanaging and intervening and meddling in day-to-day workflow that really wasn't something that they needed to be involved in if they had been empowering and trusting and equipping the leaders that they had hired to do the jobs. And so there was some heightened frustration because now the veil's been lifted. You can't unsee this growth. They've learned, they've evolved, and they were excited about living into their new style and their new interpersonal relationships. And they started to feel oppressed and like disempowered, and they started to lose their motivation. And then some infighting and frustration started to happen. And this is the dark side, that the ones who don't participate in growth, the ones who choose to be fixed mindset, the ones who are not open to acknowledging that they have more to learn, can cause chaos and wreak havoc in an organization that is starting to grow and thrive. And they've really just put the car in reverse and set everything backwards, unfortunately. And I think that that is the foundation of why most people are afraid to dig into personal development and to grow.
Because
It's
people will
because,
get educated and then they won't tolerate your bullshit.
right, exactly. They're not going to put up with it anymore, and they're going to call you on it, and they might hold you accountable to
Yeah.
whatever it was you said you were going to do, or the promises that you made that you didn't keep. Um, But we know that the primary thing that causes people to change is discomfort. Is where you are is more uncomfortable than where it is you might need to go. So until this gets so uncomfortable that you can't tolerate it anymore, you're not as likely to jump into that where you could go, what your
Mm-hmm.
potential is. So now there's this great deal of discomfort, and I'm seeing people make both decisions. And one is, I'm going to go ahead and leave. I'm going to find a different environment, or I'm going to find a way to emotionally disconnect myself from the toxic nature of this work environment. And I'm just going to show up and collect my paycheck.
Yeah, that's called the quiet quitting.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When your best people go quiet, we know there's a problem. We've seen that quote many times, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it is quiet quit, and it's very sad because their colleagues now are demotivated and they're not thriving and they're not excited to
Mm-hmm.
get the work done. And it's an unfortunate side of growth.
It is. And I do agree that oftentimes people won't invest in their people because they don't want to be held accountable and they don't want to rise to that level. And so it really does take, I mean, it's like, you know, not letting people read certain books or things. You try to hold people down on their learning so they don't get too smart. And they don't know how to think their way out of it and they don't have other options. And so it's really, really unfortunate. But the beauty is that the really good people that are growing and learning will find other places that value that. So it has to happen for them to find their next. They gain the skills in that job, and maybe eventually that culture could turn around, but it would take different leadership, and it's also the right kind of environment for certain types of people. So if people who like that kind of environment, it would be a good place for them to work. And it sounds kind of oxymoron, like who would like that kind of environment? But we all have worked with people that love the backbiting, they love the drama, the chaos, the lack of accountability, blaming, throwing other people under the bus. And so it's a good environment for those kind of people. But for those that are trying to grow, evolve, enhance their work life, flourish in the workplace and beyond, it's not someplace that your good people are going to stay.
It inhibits a business's ability to scale and grow when you don't have employees who are empowered and equipped with the tools they need to be successful in their work. And if you have leaders who are too afraid to release control, who are afraid that there might be others who are smarter than they are in certain areas or fields or areas of expertise, your company will never be able to flourish and thrive the way it could if you tap into the potential of the humans.
Yeah.
It's the human potential that allows companies to grow. And when we stifle that and we disempower people, we limit our company's ability to grow and impact the world.
That's absolutely sad. And I see it often too. And not just in corporate or business ownership. I've seen the same scenario in governments that I've worked with and also nonprofits that I've worked with in where the leader doesn't believe in this stuff, but their team can do it. So then now the leader is modeling. Maybe this is an executive director or somebody that's in a leadership position who says, everybody else can do it, but I'm not doing it. I don't show up to that stuff. I'm not doing that. I'm too busy. I'm too important. What kind of message do you think that sends to the rest of the team?
Yeah, that you're a fool if you do that. You're not as smart as I am. Oh, do you need that crutch, or is that information you don't already have because I've got it all? It belittles your workforce when you don't show up and participate. And if it's not important to you, why should it be important to anybody else?
I actually had an example. This is another dark side, and this stuff I don't talk about very often, but I actually had a person in one of those environments that was reported to the actual executive director, and that executive director, I never even met the person, but they never came to the meetings, never into any of the trainings, any of the facilitation, but their team wanted it, so they ended up doing it anyway. But there was one person that reported to that director, and that person that reported to them came to the workshop, and it was a full day, a couple of days, and that person would not even participate because their boss didn't participate. So that person is sitting there in the workshop and would not engage in any of the activities and would say, I pass. I pass. Anytime something would come up and, you're trying to engage and get people to share and do things, and that was their answer for everything. And at some point, I'm to the point where it's like, why are you even here? Pass on, then go to. This was an environment that has a lot of toxicity. And the sad part is that you can do the work, but this is going to make it a heck of a lot longer, a heck of a lot harder, and actually might make it impossible for this team to transform. Looking at another organization similar to this that had a toxic environment like that, took us 3 years to actually switch their culture and turn it into a positive culture where now they're a place where people want to work. So we know how to do it. But you can't make people and make leaders who know it all recognize how their behavior impacts everyone else around them.
Yeah, we look to our leadership to get our marching orders and to set the pace for our culture. And if they aren't participating or if they're doing other activities, we're going to be more inclined to do as they do, not as they say. It's our human nature, right?
Absolutely. So what are some other examples that you've come up with? The accountability one is one we see consistently across in most organizations, that holding people accountable is a really weak place.
Well, accountability is great when everyone is playing by the same rules. But sometimes you end up in an environment where some rules apply to some people and other rules apply to other people, but not all rules apply to the same people. And when you have that kind of a situation, you can't hold people accountable because then there's always an exception and it will but this and well, I let them go this time or I let them do it this time or get away with it that time. Well, then you have a culture of exception
Mhm.
and not a culture of rules and structure. So accountability is great when number one, you have individuals who are willing to deliver it, uh, holding people accountable in a professional and tactful way.
Mhm.
Learning to deliver that kind of feedback, it takes a skill, it takes time to develop that skill to do it well. And also to develop the mindset of receiving it, that getting feedback and being held accountable to my commitments and to my workload and to my project deadlines um, really is kindness
Mhm.
because they want me to succeed. They know what success looks like. And if I'm called out for not having met a goal or accomplished the task in the time given, it isn't necessarily a reprimand or a bad thing. It's a, hey, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again next time? How can we get better next time? So people willing to receive feedback and people willing to deliver it respectfully allows accountability to, I don't know, help create the framework for growth. But you've got to have the same set of rules
Mhm.
for all people, and making exceptions erodes trust
Mhm.
in that.
Absolutely. Or address, this is another one I see. Addressing the entire group. You know you have somebody that's late every single week. And you don't tell that person individually as a leader. You address the entire group. Just so you know, we start at 9.
Right.
Everybody knows, and they know who you're talking to, but that person that you're talking to, it's flying over their head. And so that's why it's important to have that conversation with that individual and find out what's going on and ask them, I noticed you're late the last 3, you've been late and that's unacceptable. What's going on? How can we make sure? And then you might find out that their daycare doesn't open in time. And then you can talk to the team. But when they roll in with their Starbucks late every week because they were in the drive-through and everybody else is there on time, then you've also trained the rest of your staff that there's no accountability anyways, and so why should they care?
Yep. Why does it matter? If it doesn't matter for one,
So why
why
do I
should it?
care? Hmm.
Yep. Exactly.
So we do suck the motivation out of people oftentimes. Like people, I hear a lot of leaders talking about how nobody's motivated, they're entitled, and oftentimes I have to ask them a lot more questions about what brings you to this conclusion, and also is it the environment? Is it this organization that's taught them to not be motivated? Because I guarantee you the day they showed up, they were highly motivated here.
Yeah, and that whole concept of learned helplessness is
Yeah.
something that I witnessed here, where people would often try something new or offer a suggestion or give an idea or propose a new plan that could make something more efficient, more cost effective. And the number of times they were absolutely shut down or disregarded or had their idea laughed at or belittled caused them to stop trying. They stopped trying to give ideas. And then we got to a point where we were saying, okay, everyone, give us your ideas. What do you think we can do to make some of these things more efficient? And people would just go silent.
Crickets.
They'd given up.
Yeah, no psychological safety. Why would I put myself out there when I know people are going to laugh at me, not listen to me, make fun of, like, that is not a good environment, and nothing can thrive in that environment.
Mm-mm. Nope, and they feel like, why should I waste my time? No one's going to pay any attention anyway, or they're just going to poke holes in it and find every single error rather than come alongside me and say, hey, I think we've got a good seed of an idea. Let's keep exploring it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room for those kinds of conversations here. So people just shut down. They wait for their direction. They wait to be given information. And that's how they spend their energy. It's less frustrating that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there's nothing you can do when it's a leader that is in charge, like an owner, or they're the executive director, or they're the CEO. I mean, you can do as much as you can, but there's some points in how much power you have, like, and what you can do, right?
Yeah. And you discover those boundaries, I think, pretty early on in your employment in an organization. If you have a growth mindset company that you're working with that likes employee feedback and likes innovative ideas, well, it might not be an idea that could be implemented or executed this year. It's something that could go on a long-term plan or to be talked about next year at the appropriate time.
Mm-hmm.
Just being given the opportunity to share your ideas, creating a space where people can share their ideas. One client I had, I did a pitch meeting because I had heard of so many great ideas throughout the organization. And I was like, you need to get these ideas in front of executive leadership. They're like, yeah, we don't know how, our manager won't roll it up. We don't have time. I'm like, okay, what if we just create a pitch day once a year, or you could even do it quarterly and allow 4 or 5 people to present or pitch a really cool idea or innovative idea. They get 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then you can have dialogue with the leadership team to sort of explore that idea. And then the leadership team can take all of that feedback back to the leadership table and say, which of these ideas could we implement or execute this year?
Mm-hmm.
Which ones would be good for next year? But creating the forum, whether you take action immediately doesn't really matter. It's that you've made a space for them to be heard. You've asked them to come to the table with their great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You've had dialogue about it. You've explored some of your questions, and then you've taken it back to the leadership team for consideration. And your employees feel heard. They feel valued. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, my ideas, they're thinking about whether or not they want to do it, and they have really good questions. And then when some of those ideas do get acted upon, you can't even give a bonus that matches the
No,
enthusiasm that comes out of somebody's ideas being recognized as valuable and important to helping the organization grow and transform.
that's clean gas for the tank. I mean, that is
Oh,
energy efficient gas, right? Like, work should fuel the human spirit. And that's the
yeah.
clean gas, right? The dirty gas is, the even a pay for performance, it doesn't last over time. Otherwise, you have to keep giving that extra pay to keep getting that work. But if you give people space and opportunity to be heard and recognized and be a part of it, you're giving such a gift to those people, and you're creating an environment where they can be successful, and they will go out of their way, and they won't leave you for $1 more an hour.
Nope, they will be loyal, knowing they could make a little bit more money somewhere else, but are they going to be as valued? Are they going to feel included? Are they going to feel respected like they do at your company?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. And they aren't willing to take that gamble for a few bucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you never know. You can leave with the one devil for the next, right? Like, you don't know, when you're leaving an organization. Sometimes you just don't know if it's going to be better. But I think that's changing. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of organizations that are putting time and development into their people, and they recognize that they won't keep them, especially if they have a high intellectual driver. If they're highly intellectual, they are not going to stay in an organization that they don't get to learn and develop. It's just, they won't stay for the long term. And even if they like the mission and the vision, they need opportunities to learn and to grow and to self-actualize, right? That's part of what they're in it for. And so it's an important thing to pay attention to. And if you don't know these things, and if our listeners don't know how to figure out these things, that's why there's people who help in these areas, is to find out what that is. What does your team dynamics look like? Who needs what? And each individual gets individualized attention, and help them to reveal their potential. This is just so much good stuff.
Yep.
We're running
Just
short.
right seat.
Yeah, we're running short on time, but there's three, at the end, I like to find out, what do you wish you knew as 20-year-old Marlene, 2021? What are some things over the last 25 years of all the experiences you've gained? What would you tell yourself or our younger listeners, the wisdom that you wish you'd known earlier?
Oh, there's so much. Narrow it
We might
down
have to have
to
another episode, part 2.
right, one or two. I'm smarter than I think I am, or I am smarter than I thought I was, and I'm smarter than the people around me and my high school grades told me I was. I've discovered how smart I am when I really learned my capacity to learn and my passion to learn, and it's like there's no limit to our ability to learn other than our own decision that we can or cannot learn more. So I think tapping into your own potential, and not listening to what others have to say, their opinions about you don't matter quite as much as I thought that they did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Unless they're in your circle of trust and they are caring and giving you that good feedback, because I think it's important to pay attention to those people's opinions, but just the
The
louder,
arena people.
yeah, the people in the arena, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What else? What else do you wish you knew for our younger listeners and people that are just now they're just in the trenches, they're just surviving.
Yeah. So I used to tell this a lot to my clients or to people I was coaching or in my classes. Don't let money be the determining factor for your professional decisions. Do not let the expected financial outcome determine your yes or your no. You really have to be passionate about the work you're doing. And sometimes the paycheck doesn't match the passion. And if you chase the paycheck without the passion being there, you will fall flat every time. You will burn out eventually, and you won't have deep joy and satisfaction in your work. Now, sometimes if you're very, very blessed, you get the big paycheck and the amazing, fulfilling career and job. But I believe that choosing the path, the career path that is more fulfilling and makes you makes you passionate and makes you happy to show up to work each day, the money will follow.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I thank you so much for that. That's such good wisdom. And I think our listeners can relate to that. I want to thank you for sharing your time. And I think we need to have more of these discussions, and we might need to turn it into another one, because I really do believe there are some dark sides. And these are the things that not everybody gets to hear. This is not, it's not stuff that people know about. If you're not working with a lot of organizations, how would you know? You know the organization you work with, you know the culture you work with, the family you have, but you don't know the rest. So thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. And I know that the people that get to work with you, whether you're facilitating for them, whether you're coaching, whether you're helping with organizational culture, they really have a gem, Idaho gem, when they get to work with you. And I look forward to getting to work with you in this new year. So thank you for doing the work you're doing with all the people and creating that ripple effect. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.